Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm 𝗖𝗽𝗶 Biniaz, co-founder and CEO of CPI Capital, Canadian Passive Investing. I'm joined by my wonderful co-host, 𝗖𝗽𝗶 Benesocky, co-founder and vice president of CPI Capital. Welcome, Eva.
Thank you, August. Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We have another incredible show for you guys. Tonight we're joined by the brilliant 𝗖𝗽𝗶, founder and CEO of Token Funder.
Yes, no, for sure.
Really exciting.
Very excited to have Alan with us tonight.
So before we start our show, allow us to tell you a bit about us and how we benefit passive investors. So why don't you go ahead and take it away, August?
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Here at CPI, we acquire, improve, and actively manage multifamily real estate assets. These assets we acquire are largely stabilized and revenue producing, which allows us to pay our investors regular distributions immediately after closing on the property. Only deals that qualify under our rigorous criteria will be presented to our investors. Our investors benefit not only from the regular passive income distributions, but also the back-end profits on disposition.
So I'll say that a little slower. In other words, sit back, enjoy the ride while August puts in 18-hour days for everybody.
Unfortunately, that's true. That's true.
Yes.
Okay, great.
So now that you've learned about our business model, allow me to touch on some really important key points, okay? So something very common we have noticed is that people wanting to grow their investment portfolio in real estate don't know where to begin, okay? They simply don't have the time to be active investors. They don't know where to find the best deals.
True.
They don't have systems, my favorite word in the world, systems in place for avoiding financial pitfalls like double taxation. Of course, they don't want to be taken advantage of. And honestly, the list of challenges goes on. So August and I are extremely excited to be able to eliminate our investor pain points and make their journey as smooth as possible.
Absolutely. Yes, Eva, we definitely take care of our investor pain points, that's for sure. And in doing so, we also see the importance of understanding the real estate fundamentals. We want our investors to understand these fundamentals.
Definitely.
Through our thought leadership platform, CPI Academy, we educate investors by hosting webinars like the one we're doing tonight, meetup groups, and one-on-one coaching. And if you haven't already done so, please go to our website, CanadianPassiveInvesting.com, and sign up to our newsletter. It's a bi-monthly newsletter, had lots of great content on it, so make sure to do that.
Yeah, CanadianPassiveInvesting.com. Make sure you sign up. You don't want to miss out. We have some really exciting, great deals on the way.
Absolutely.
So sign up.
Absolutely.
All right, Alan, why don't we get to the exciting part here?
Just one quick moment before we introduce our wonderful guest. If you have any questions, please write it down in the Q&A box, and we will get to your questions closer to the end of the webinar, and we'll try to answer all your questions for you. And please go ahead, Eva. Thank you so much.
Okay, so here we go.
A bit of a mouthful, so.
A bit of a mouthful. Tonight we have 𝗖𝗽𝗶, CEO and Chief Token Officer of Token Funder, Chief Compliant Officer of Co-founder of Token GX, Chair and Co-founder of Blockchain Canada, and founding Canadian Chair of ISO TC 307, Blockchain and Distributed Ledger Technologies Standards Committee. Alan is a finance and blockchain technology expert focused on the disruptive impacts of blockchain and cryptocurrencies on capital markets and global wealth distribution. He led Token Funder's launch of Canada's first regulatory compliant security token offering on the Ethereum public blockchain, established Token GX as Canada's first security token exempt market dealer, and is building Canada's first secondary trading platform, FreedomX, with hands-on technology experience leading finance and risk transformation programs as an executive and global bank, Scotiabank, managing, consulting. Sorry, go ahead. Deloitte PwC Incubators
Deloitte.
and Startups. Alan, you are awesome.
Yeah,
That was a mouthful.
welcome, Alan. And just one last quick item here. So, Token Funder is CPI's exclusive EMD. CPI has taken the unprecedented steps to service all our investors through the Token Funder platform. We'll be discussing exactly what EMDs and the platform in a moment. And
so welcome, Alan.
welcome, Alan.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Great to be here with you guys.
Awesome. We're gonna have a few questions for you, and then we're gonna kind of flow into learning more about the platform and everything else. So please, Ava, if you like, go ahead. Ask
All right, Alan. So here we go.
Right.
Could you please tell us what is an EMD, exempt market dealer?
Okay, so we're going to start off with the regulatory stuff now. Okay, so first of all, that's a very good question, and a lot of people really would benefit from understanding what an EMD is, because it is the registered entity that works with investors to allow them and to facilitate their investment in the exempt market. So exempt market dealers are really an organization such as what token funders are registered, and we actually, if you look at the fine print, that's registered as Token GX, and we register with the provincial securities regulators first of all. So that's an important point. So as an organization, the EMD is really accountable to investors, of course, but registered with securities commissions. So across the country. So it's a Canadian term, specifically designed for the exempt market. Now, the exempt market is, I think we'll be talking about that a little bit more. I think you'd be also interested to know that EMDs have an organization that is required to have a chief compliance officer, someone called a dealer representative. So dealer representatives are the ones that really work with your investment objectives and have an opportunity to kind of make sure that the investment is suitable for you as an investor. So there's other regulatory requirements, such as proficiency requirements that the registered individuals in an EMD must have. Don't have to go into all of that. I'm a CPA by training. Went through the registration process with Token GX in Ontario as our primary regulator, but we're also registered in other provinces such as BC, Alberta, Quebec, and obviously the big ones, such that we can support investors in those provinces and issuers in those provinces. So another term there is issuer. Issuer is a term that is new to a lot of people. That's the entity or the organization, such as what Canadian Passive Investing is the ultimate issuer of the securities. And the EMD is the agent that works with the issuer to distribute those securities and basically sell them on their behalf to investors.
Got it. So they're basically a second set of eyes for investors, where they're overseeing any deals that get presented to the investor. That's kind of also the other item, right?
I think you're well. That's exactly right. There's requirements here, and these are pretty well laid out in securities, really in the Securities Acts. Such that the EMD has to conduct what's known as know your product. So has to understand what's being sold. So that's KYP, and that's the part where an EMD does due diligence on the issuer and the offering itself. So if you're going to sell a security to the public, you have to understand it in the sense that the security or the investment has to be made kind of understood and for the investors themselves. Now, that's on the one hand, and of course the EMD then is required to do KYC, which is know your customer or know your client in other terms. So both apply. KYC is where the EMD says, okay, as an investor, what are your risk tolerances? What are your investment objectives? How long's your time horizon? That sort of thing. And before the EMD can essentially facilitate or authorize the issuance of the investment to the investor, there's a match made. So the EMD is required to conduct the KYP on the one hand, and then once investors are interested, the KYC happens. We'll talk about what we do at Token Funder, which is automating some of these aspects, which is really the exciting part.
Absolutely, absolutely, and like I mentioned earlier, we've taken the unprecedented steps of servicing all our investors through the Token Funder, through our EMD.
Yeah.
But most issuers have an EMD, but they also sell their securities themselves. So this is kind of a difference between our team. So it's something unique that we've seen. And we'll have another question here for Alan, if you like. Is that my turn or your turn?
It's your turn.
It's my turn. Okay.
Yeah.
Could you? Let me see. What type of investments do EMDs offer? Are EMDs restricted to one type of investment asset? For example, real estate, technology.
Very good question.
Other industries, energy.
Right. Good question. No, EMDs aren't typically restricted in the kind of investments that they can provide. Now, I would add that the EMD should have some level of expertise or understanding enough to understand the asset class themselves. So that's a kind of a baseline expectation, and as a restriction, not specifically. There are some kind of higher level restrictions around who can work with mutual funds and such, but really in terms of real estate, technology, energy, real estate then comes in different flavors, of course, residential, commercial, multifamily. So there's different aspects, but no restrictions.
Great.
Not specifically, EMDs aren't specifically designated for a particular area, but you'd like to have someone that understands that area.
Of course,
Okay.
makes sense. Yeah.
Very nice. Okay, Alan, so the next question, could you discuss the large role that real estate plays in an alternative asset portfolio?
Wow, this is a really big question.
We're putting you on the hot seat tonight, Alan.
It's a hot question, actually, and this is a question that we get a lot of.
Okay.
So today, and you've got the great words there around the alternative asset portfolios. There are many ways to invest, of course, right? And we're speaking of this event, and this evening we're speaking about the exempt market, which is the private market of investments. So people have their public, public company investments that they can make. They make them in. They can do that through kind of traditional ways. They've got typical deposits where they have their savings, and of course, the concern that everyone has is, where do you get the most amount of return? Where do you get the yield? Where can you take appropriate level of risk and match that up with the kind of stability? So real estate has always been of course, you guys already know this, but real estate has always been a very good asset class to invest in and stay in for the longer term. And of course, there are a variety of opportunities. Let's just call it out that you've got the ability to have higher yields ultimately than you would if you put we all know what your what you're going to get at a bank these days, not much in terms of your deposits, right?
That's true. Yeah.
So this gives you an opportunity to invest in something that doesn't move, especially in the residential space. We've got an example that is also real estate related that we're facilitating issuance. We have an issuer that's a mortgage investment corporation, so it works really in the residential mortgage space and has a higher yield than you would see in depositing your money at the typical bank. And real estate as an investment portion of your portfolio really has benefits from long-term appreciation that it typically has had, and also has yield opportunity. So you can get both growth and yield through this. Now, of course, it depends on who's providing you that investment and what they found, and there are opportunities to get in on development level, ground level in real estate investing. Those are higher risk. There are some that then become mid-level or lower risk. Now, risk is all relative, and I think your audience really understands risk, I'm sure, being on this webinar. But it's all relative in terms of what it is for you. So, you have a high risk tolerance and you wish to take outweighted investment in something that has a higher yield, this is the opportunity. Now, again, I don't want to paint real estate as being higher risk. The regulators believe that the private market in general is higher risk, and so hence the EMD requirements to do all the KYP and KYC that we talked about.
Yes.
But generally, we've seen real estate being more stable in terms of the investments over time.
Great.
So hopefully that helps you. But you guys are real estate experts already, so.
Yeah, no,
so
definitely.
We can discuss real estate all night long, of course.
Exactly.
For sure.
All night long.
For sure. And the items that you mentioned about kind of the risk tolerance and what have you, those are items that you go through with investors when they get in contact with you, like yourself, and the EMD kind of goes through that process, correct?
Right. So I can speak to that. I can speak to that now if you'd like.
Sure, please.
Yeah,
absolutely.
great.
I alluded to it already. There's really kind of two pieces of KYC is know your client, know your customer, know your client, and it's important that an EMD understands whether a person has a higher risk tolerance, lower risk tolerance. Are they looking for growth? Are they looking for income? What are their desires in terms of their investments? So what we've done is really kind of embodied the intelligence of being face to face, and we essentially use a smart platform that we've built that asks these questions, understands who you are for a starting point. So there's a suitability assessment that we've worked with the regulators to really kind of apply software intelligence and such that allows us to make it a lot more streamlined. So in terms of the interaction, you can essentially work with our platform and know whether you're qualified for a particular investment based on the answers you provide. And then when you get into the investing process, of course, you still have to sign your risk acknowledgement form and the subscription agreement, but we make that really easy to do too. Yeah. So there's a couple of components to this. And yeah, your question around interacting, the traditional way is that, and I've spoken to many people that have worked with traditional EMDs, is that it's done in a manner that is very kind of come to my office, let's fill out the paperwork, it's fairly time consuming, also paper intensive. So what we've done at Token Funder is really streamlined it and thought hard about the user experience as well. So signing up, building really a kind of profile of yourself that, pretty quickly, and then we get an idea. So for example, and you thank you for reading my entire bio at the beginning, but as the Chief Compliance Officer, the designated Chief Compliance Officer at Token GX, when there are investors that come onto the platform and they hit certain flags. So somebody says, I've got a really, I'm older and I've got a really long time horizon or something. There's certain things that just seem kind of off. They get flagged for us, and we make sure that the person's thought about it, and we can then have that interaction. So it's not all automated. You can still email, pick up the phone essentially, and have a chat. But we've certainly built in the intelligence, and this is where we've again worked with the regulators to automate what was typically very paper intensive, and you can trip up a red flag by saying, I just my risk tolerance is really low, and we'll say, well, it's really not suitable for you to get into something that's a high risk investment then. Yeah. And we flag that, and then it's good for everybody. And ultimately, I'll come back to why we do this. There's two things going on here. So working with the broadly speaking, and I'm going to say that it's the Canadian Securities Administrators in Canada is the group, the umbrella organization of the provincial securities commissions, like the Ontario Securities Commission, BC, Alberta, the AMF, and others. They all participate in the CSA. And when we went to the CSA, we said, okay, so we went through what's called the launch pad, and we said, okay, we're going to do this in an innovative way. So the regulators are all about innovation, but not at the expense of investor protection. So at the end of the day, we as the EMD, or any EMD really, has to be accountable for the kind of decisions they make. And so we built a lot of that intelligence into the platform, but it's all auditable. So we know when you've completed that suitability assessment, because it's good for you. If there's ever a time you say, I want to see a document that I signed, well, actually, we're required to provide it to you. And
that's incredible, and we'll get more into that definitely, Alan. As we get into the portal, we just want to get some other questions out of the way here, and we'll delve deeper into this.
Keep coming.
A quick question. I know the answer to this one, but I'll ask it anyways. Can American investors invest with you, an EMD?
Yes, and so it works. It works like okay. So I'm just going to say yes for starters, and it's dependent on the offering document. So there's something called an offering memorandum that can be provided, and the offering memorandum, if it's it's a Canadian offering memorandum, there is the possibility for accredited investors, and I'm sure you'll ask questions around these categories, but for American U.S. accredited investors to participate in the offering, and we're working on some other interesting things to allow for beyond just accredited investors. But Canadian, no problem, and yes, that's the quick answer.
Right on.
Great, awesome.
Okay,
yeah,
great.
Please go ahead.
So, Alan, what is the difference between a financial advisor and an exempt market dealer, EMD?
Okay. Just very high level. I think we've talked about the requirements that EMDs have. Financial advisors also have requirements. But a financial advisor may also work at a typical financial institution, right? I mean, there's obviously financial advisors everywhere, and some work with large financial institutions, smaller wealth management firms. That's a really it's a broad term, but it has responsibilities as well. Now the EMD, as I described, is a specifically designated registered entity that has specifically declared requirements, which are all about investor protection. But very much the aims are similar. The compensation packages or the ways that they get compensated may be different. But definitely, the objectives at the end of the day would be similar. Financial advisor certainly has to do KYP. But I think earlier when I described to you that the parts of an EMD, there's the designated dealer representative, the term that is the person that works with investors.
Got it.
Thank
awesome.
you, Alan.
Great. Another question here for you. Is an EMD limited to investments located in the province they're licensed in? Or they could...
It's the other way around. So when we are licensed in BC, then we can serve BC investors. So it's about the investors that is important. Yeah.
Great.
Great.
Okay.
So you want to, absolutely, we can support you guys and others.
Perfect. And I think we touched on this question already, but if you like, please go ahead.
Okay, Alan. So what is the process for EMDs to conduct due diligence on securities issuers to ensure that they're offering their investor community the best investment opportunities?
So I went through this for a few months with Alan while I was being, due diligence was being conducted on me, but go ahead, Alan, please.
Due diligence.
So there's multiple levels of due diligence, and it's a very good question because there's kind of an expectation that some magical stuff just kind of happens in the background, but the process is combined financial due diligence, a combination of financial due diligence, legal due diligence, business due diligence, and is, again, if you think about it at a couple of different levels, the issuer themselves has some level of we have to understand where they're incorporated, all the typical basic sort of stuff, and when the offering then comes to the table, so let's say we have an offering memorandum for the investors, then the EMD needs to feel comfortable with the offering memorandum, which then there's financial statements that are attached, right? So the process, and not to bore you with details of the process, because EMDs are required to walk through all their processes with the regulators before they get registered. But I'll tell you, the process involves speaking with their legal counsel that the organization of the issuer is using to build up the offering memorandum, for example, and their financial accountants. For example, if they've got audited financial statements against it, and of course, there's all the typical questions around, is the risk profile, because I'm speaking a bit technical here, but there are special sections of these offering documents, and there's a whole section about risk. Right, so the investors need to understand what risks they're taking, and as an EMD, part of the due diligence is to understand that those risks seem appropriate, and that's where we get to discussing that with the issuer themselves. So I don't want to it's a balance between the process and at the same time, I will say an EMD does that KYP. At the end of the day, that offering document and that offering is still the responsibility of the issuer to make it right. So it ends up being a kind of a double check and a second set of eyes to make sure that things are right. And we understand the process, so we'll make sure that the offering memorandum looks good too.
Great, awesome. Is it my turn?
It's your turn.
All right. Do you need to be accredited investor to be able to invest in a private offering through an EMD?
Okay, so
we discussed that a little bit.
You do not.
That's okay.
And there's there's regulations around this. I'm speaking from a Canadian perspective right now, okay? Because there's the word accredited, or the classification and the term accredited investor really is slightly different in every country. But I'll just describe it this way. An offering memorandum is something that we have, and we can make available to investors, of course. Now, that offering memorandum is set out such that if it's created in a way that's under what's called 45-106, which is 45-106, offering memorandum exemption, which is really a prospectus exemption, but it's a private offering document that allows accredited investors no problem. Okay, first of all. But the answer here is, your question was, do you need to be an accredited investor? The answer is no. And this is the important part of it. It's like we could have built our platform to just be for accredited investors. We didn't find that satisfying enough. And once you realize that there's a lot of people in general, investors, clients, people that really should be given access to higher yielding products in the private market. How do we do that? We do that through the offering memorandum process. And now, if you're not an accredited investor, and by the way, accredited investors meet certain assets and income thresholds, which is, for example, at $2 million in assets or $200,000 in income. The next level is called an eligible investor. So the accredited investor essentially has no max. We just, if you hit that threshold, there's no investment max, no investment thresholds. Now, an eligible investor is that mid-tier that can invest upwards to $100,000 a year, and it begins at $30,000 unless you speak to the dealer representative and you've received some advice. That then can move you to the $100,000 a year level. And so there are then these annual limits in the private market, but that's pretty good for an average person that makes it to into the eligible status, and that's about a net income threshold of about 125. Then non-eligible investors can also invest, and this is very important. Can invest upwards to $10,000 a year currently, and those limits are being reevaluated currently, and we're pushing to have those limits ultimately increased. But as I said before, the original kind of the desire around investor protections is if you're not hitting these kind of upper level thresholds, then then their regulators have, the regulations and securities acts have been designed such that they've got these investor protections built right in. So we're trying to get those limits increased as well. And I think it won't be too long.
Absolutely. And here in BC, actually, if we're using an offer and memorandum exemption, there is no maximum investment amount per year like it is in some other provinces. So that's great. And again, it's the streamlining system that Token Funder has. Which is the portal it has, that all the information is on it, and we'll get into that. Mm-hmm. That is precisely the reason why we have dropped our minimum investment amount to 10,000 USD, and also as far as accredited and non-accredited because of Token Funders, the decision we made to go with accredited and non-accredited investors. So and we'll get into that in a moment here. So if you like to go and ask this question.
Alrighty, Alan. Okay, so how can an investor find an EMD, and let's say, is there a yellow pages book for an EMD?
Well, no more searching. We have, you got the top EMD right here. So, but yes, please let us know if there is like a
yellow pages for EMDs.
Not yet. So there isn't a Yelp for EMDs. That's a really good question though. There's that's a really good question. We've certainly had discussions with others, and it's important for us. It's what's really important here is that we achieve both the investor protections, which is obviously important to everyone, and the innovative customer experience and allowing for access to anyone to really higher yielding products. But no, I don't know. I don't know that there is a yellow pages. However, you can always call up your securities commission and ask, and that's something that they're there to ask or answer investor questions at any time.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Great,
Alan. Okay, I guess let's see here, Alan. At this time, we would like to discuss Token Funder and how its platform and how this platform has streamlined the EMD investing process and has achieved unprecedented steps only dreamed by securities and technology experts. Only dreamed.
I have to tell a quick story here about Alan. So before we get into Token Funder and discuss the platform and also all the fun other stuff, the tokens and digital currency and what have you. Me and Alan met a while back, and it was totally coincidental, and we got to kind of learn about each other. I learned about his services he was offering. He learned about us. And but the more I read about him, the more I'm like, hey, these are exact things that my securities lawyers had mentioned to me that are not possible, that are impossible to do. And so I got on a call with my lawyer and discussed Alan. He's like, no, that's impossible. That's totally impossible what you're saying he's offering. Limited partnerships shares cannot be traded. They can't even, it's hard enough to sell it back to the sponsor, let alone to have them to be traded. So the next day, he calls me back. He's got a senior counsel who's been a lawyer for over 30 years in securities on a call with me, and they're very interested about Alan. They're like, okay, listen, this concept has been around for a while. We've heard about it, but nobody's been sophisticated enough to actually achieve it. Yeah. So they did their due diligence on Alan, and they got back to me. He's like, listen, he's the real deal.
He's the real deal.
So that
was pretty awesome.
That was, and I think Alan ended up communicating with our lawyers, obviously through the process and what have you. So Alan, I would like to quickly go. The system is pretty streamlined, but it's also in a way complicated. It took a bit of time for me to understand it, but I have a bit of background in the cryptocurrency and the blockchain technology background. I've invested in it years ago, and I have an understanding. And I still don't fully understand it, but I do understand it a bit. And even for me, it was bit difficult to understand, but let's go ahead and kind of break it down into three areas, and then we'll come back and kind of touch on it. So the first item is the streamlining for investors, what you have created on the platform, where they could come and see multiple offerings at the same time and make a decision about what offering they like to invest in and learn more about. So kind of talk to us about that, if you don't mind.
Sure. So this being this is not necessarily a demo, but I really invite you to anyone that's interested to experience it for themselves. Now, streamlining is really about the onboarding process, and we've talked a bit about what that experience we've tried to make happen, or that we've tried to deliver for your investors. Come to tokenfunder.com, and you will soon see, for example, if you come to tokenfunder.com/CPI, you're going to soon see CPI's investing opportunities, right? So this is going to be really exciting. Now,
so exciting.
Thank you, Sam. Sam just he shared it with everyone.
Oh,
Sam
thank you,
did.
Sam. Thank you. That's great.
Yeah, perfect. So you go there, so you go there, and what you have there now is really a landing page. That landing page will soon have your offerings up there. So you've got a investment opportunity that we'll do the KYP around it, et cetera. We'll have it listed up there, right? And so all the highlights and such. And so really, you just have to press that invest button, and when you press the invest button, you're either going to get that you're going to create yourself a quick account. You're going to do that streamlined onboarding with the KYC, which is the suitability around that, right? And then you're going to really, in quite a streamlined manner, you're going to take that next step and say, I'm interested in investing X amount, and it knows essentially with the answers you've provided, and they have to all be consistent and all, right? So with those answers you've provided, you're essentially you're in a certain category, and that gives you a certain limit. As we said, accredited investors no limit at all. But then basically we'll walk you through the signing of the risk acknowledgement form right online. And let's say that you want to sign up, and we haven't really talked about operationally where you guys are at on this, but we have issuers that provide dividends on a monthly basis for their MIC, and we also automate the banking information piece of this. So yes, it's kind of two steps. So you first onboard yourself, pre-qualified with the suitability assessment. Sometimes it's frankly easier for me to just do the quick demo online, but I'm just talking you through it right now. And then, assuming everything's good and you haven't tripped up any of the red flags that we've built into the system to protect investors, and most people get through fine, by the way. Then you go into that investment step. Now, what we do is we also streamline it this way. So if somebody's investing $1,000, I'm gonna say, okay, $10,000 in one of your offerings, right?
Yes.
Then we'll show you a few options, and you'll be able to wire it or such. It'll go straight to a trust account that's designated for you as the issuer, and then we do the full audit at the end of the day, and you say, when you close the round, or when you close the investment will distribute all the paperwork. Now, think about this as essentially another online account that you have with us. And when you come back, you'll see documents that are your investment documents. You'll see an account section that has your holdings that you've invested in, and that's really that's really helpful. You come back and then it's a future point. Let's say use the issuer wanting to communicate something with some updates on that investment. That'll also go into the document section. So it'll kind of be this one-stop place for you as an investor that is invested in CPI's offerings.
Yeah, no, that's incredible, and that's one of the ideas that we fell in love with you, with your system, and you. Is that Ava, as she mentioned earlier, she loves systems. We use many different softwares, our CRM, our task management software, and many other items. So this kind of takes that world where there's a lot of paperwork, there's lots of record keeping, and it keeps everything on one portal, and that was something that we were totally wowed about.
Incredibly organized and streamlined. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, great.
Yeah, we've certainly tried to keep it really user friendly and simple. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So we get to the next item here. So the concept of limited partnership the concept of trading limited partnership shares. We would like to discuss this with you. So historically, this must go back decades. But in the world of capital markets, when you make an investment and receive limited partnership shares, the shares are not sellable, let alone tradable. So what you kind of explain to us about Token Funder and how it allows the possibility for this to take place. If I've mentioned that correctly, please correct me if I haven't.
Yeah. This is where it does get certainly exciting, and let's now make sure that there's a couple of other terms involved here, and that's the initial setup, or the initial they are called trades, in fact. The primary trade, or the primary issuance, when you first acquire some of these shares through the platform, is one thing, of course, right? And then there's something called secondary trades or secondary markets. This is now this new place that we really worked with our friendly regulators and looked to innovate in a space that typically you wouldn't find any liquidity for private market shares. Now, I'm gonna have to look to you guys to just see how far down the rabbit hole we want to go, because I'm gonna propose that we don't go down too far into it. But let me just say, the way that we're going to accomplish this, and the way that we are approved to do this, is allowing for people to find others to basically buy and sell these shares with on our platform. And we called it Freedom X when we launched it. It's a tab within the Token Funder platform right now that is the secondary trading area. And once you have the shares, and at some point you'd like to sell them, you would go to the tab, because we know who you are. We know how much, we essentially know that you own the shares. And the reason we know that is because we're using some behind the scenes advanced technology using blockchain technology. So we essentially digitize the shares. You're not getting this PDF. I mean, there's a form of PDF that you're going to get just for your records, but essentially we take what has been traditionally a paper-based system, and we all know that we're kind of trading in the world of the digital world these days, even in the markets themselves. But there's a new term out there called tokenizing. So we create a digital representation of the share, and that's where the word token comes from, because the techie term around that is you're creating a token of those shares. Now, and that's all done behind the scenes, by the way. It's such that we securely create this digital security for you, and that will make it tradable. And the reason for that is because you can, through our platform, instruct the system without any of our involvement. You can instruct the system, this underlying technology, to transfer the shares to another person on the platform. And that's when we get into what's called secondary trading. And there's some really advanced things that we're looking at. This whole space includes something new called decentralized finance, and in other words, called DeFi. We're touching upon this in secondary trading. So again, I don't want to. I know that people don't want to go into the rabbit hole of the underlying technology. It's pretty advanced, but we've worked really hard for a couple of years with the regulators to get us approved such that we can issue these digital shares on this advanced technology, and it's secured and auditable for the regulators. So there's really a lot of benefits at the end of the day just by digitizing them. But the real benefits come from the secondary market down the road too. And by the way, makes it easier once we digitize them and we put them into your account on our platform for us to distribute dividends like directly to your account. So there's quite a few advantages, but I'm glad you guys are excited about it. We certainly are too.
For sure, definitely.
It's taken a long time to come. I'll add one more thing, by the way, and that's quite interesting. We didn't talk about this before, but literally news in the last couple of days. There's a conference, and it was down in the US. So the head of the SEC, Clayton, was speaking about the future of capital markets. And so, this is the private market we're talking about. He was talking about the public markets too. And he said, without a question, he sees all digital shares and shares in general becoming tokenized.
Wow.
In the future. Wow. So this is definitely where the future is going.
Yeah.
We saw this future several years ago, but it takes a while to get there. And we're taking small steps. We're not even where we think we will be eventually. There's some really interesting things we're going to do for secondary market. Absolutely. But it all begins with this idea of creating a digital security that we give the investor. So you get that traditional PDF, sure, that document, but you're also getting this advanced form of the security, which is exactly what the SEC chairman was talking about.
Absolutely.
So you're on the right track, guys.
No, absolutely.
Awesome.
That's truly incredible. And I could kind of compare it to paper mail, or actually email. So that's kind of the conversion that I see here, and it's difficult for people to comprehend this concept of, hey, my a letter or my mail would be digitized, would it be secure? But what guys have done, the Token Funder has done, is taken a step above and brought that incredible system of blockchain, where most banks are using it these days, and we know how secure is the most secure system out there, blockchain is, and you've incorporated that into the system to make it even an extra step of being secure and digitize the whole process. So it's truly amazing and incredible what you have done, and we're definitely looking forward to be part of it. We'd like to have you on again after one of our deals goes live. Yeah. We have a lot of questions here. We might not have time to go through them all, but I'll kind of go over a few questions here for you, Alan. I'll just scroll. It's going to take me just a few seconds. I got to scroll up.
There's some really good questions, though.
Sure, fire away.
Awesome.
Okay, great. Can EMD sell both proprietary and third-party investments?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question, please?
Can the EMD sell proprietary and third-party investments?
Well, it's all dependent on the issuer and proprietary and third-party investments. I think I'm going to need your questioner to ask or to clarify what that is.
Okay.
Because
we'll have him clarify that.
In fact, the answer may be yes, in the spirit of in having offering documents, so we can work with private market offerings, which are third party, which are proprietary. Proprietary is an interesting word. So I'm going to offer this, by the way. If there's a question that we need to take away, they can either go to you guys, of course, but I think you've also given my email address out there, right?
No, absolutely. And we kind of ask everyone, please go on the Token Funder website.
Yes.
Sam will share the Token Funder website itself. Please, and that's the first thing I did when I met Alan a while back. Start an account, have a look at the system. Is truly an incredible system how it works. It's very quick. You kind of get you get looked at immediately, and you have a live account, and you can look at many different offerings they have. So I would definitely suggest everybody that's on here tonight, please get on the platform and have a look for yourself. Let's keep going here, and if you need to get in touch with Alan, exactly, tokenfunder.com.
Alan at tokenfunder.com.
Yep, exactly, and we'll get Sam to add that. So let's quickly see here. Lots of questions. Is the webinar going to be recorded? Yes, it is. Yeah. Let's see, Dustin's question up here. I'm not very good at this, but I'm trying.
Was that the question?
Okay.
Clicky.
Do you want me to pick one up? I actually have found the question box, or at least I see it.
Oh, nice.
Please,
yeah,
please, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
please.
definitely.
Who determines what products get placed on Token Funder's shelf? Okay, it's the EMD that really has the wherewithal or the option to deny listing, essentially. I mean, if it just just makes sense. There was, for example, I mean, there was one that was just extremely complicated, and I had determined that it looked like there were 3 or 4 different investments in multiple different industries, all in one offering memorandum. And I thought that it would just be too complicated for anyone really to understand, and
yes,
so we didn't proceed with that.
Yep. There's another great question from Mike. And before you answer this question, it's what do you say to people who think that EMDs add another level of paperwork and increase operating costs, thus making it less effective for returns? So allow me just to put my quick input here. So and I'm going to use the same comparison with paper mail or email. So imagine paper mail being sent back and forth, and there had to be post offices, there had to be centers where they triage the mails. So imagine how many people are needed to work at those places and the cost for paper mail. Now imagine the same mail being an email. It's a platform which gets it done digitally. So it kind of answers the question. But please go ahead, Alan, and answer Mike's question.
Yeah. So I think what's important here is there's a regulatory requirement that you just can't get around, first of all, right? And for the interface, so EMDs are essentially a gateway to allowing issuers to attract many different investors through a platform. So if you have a platform like ours, you essentially need to be an EMD to offer the kind of offerings that we do. Now, what is a good part of this question is adding. I'm seeing a question there, and it says another level of paperwork. So now that we're here, right? We have we've certainly compared. So we think about it as a great kind of streamlining, and so paperwork doesn't exist necessarily in our. There's just a digital version, and it's much more streamlined. It's more efficient, and we don't have to deal with the paper of the past. Or even as someone, and I'll just relate to your audience, something one of our investors said to me the other night, and was quite amazed at the way that we've designed it for you to select buttons, and then when you're making that investment process, you're not taken out to some other third-party PDF signing utility that doesn't work on mobile screens, and is just kind of sometimes it's clunky. We've actually taken all that and crunched it into really nice mobile-friendly, desktop-friendly versions where you really just click buttons and move through what have typically been really cumbersome-looking documents. So we've considerably reduced the amount of paperwork. In fact, there's still some filing that has to happen with regulators, but that's you're never going to get around that. But the investing process now has been quite streamlined and made nice and efficient. I mean, I think you'll really enjoy it when you actually experience it, because this investor said to me, and I'm just gonna come back to what that investor said. He couldn't believe how easy and sort of Apple-like it was. It was this, it's the experience of let's very understandable, nice and explained and sequenced such that felt like it was really easy to understand, and it was pretty quick. And then when it comes to would you like to transfer your funds with electronic funds transfer and all that, those options are there and really easy to use.
Beautiful.
Great. No, for sure.
Yeah, which means lower operating costs for sure.
Absolutely.
And whereas I'm just gonna put this out there. Whereas traditionally we've got literally seeing EMVs, and there's a lot. This is an industry that has evolved, and we just we happen to have a very digital form of it, so we don't have to charge 5 to 8% in fees, which you may have seen out there if you've experienced kind of this process before as an issuer. Now we've certainly made it very, very, very low fees compared to those traditionally doing it.
And that gets passed on to the investor, because the issuer is not spending crazy amounts of money trying to work with like I mentioned, imagine a mail center where the mail have to goes back and forth, and imagine it all being done digitally. We have time for a couple more questions, but go ahead, Alan.
Exactly. No, just add to that. So yeah, one of the ones that you can see there, and we have one that's private that you can't see, but there's a MIC you can see there, and they're targeting 10% returns. So if they had gone kind of the traditional route, they would never have been able to deliver those kind of returns to the investors, because it would have been going to traditional kind of money managers and such that were finding the funds. But now they can literally offer 10% returns on their MIC.
We were actually looking at their mix, so that's one of our investment ideas to potentially invest with them as well. So there you go. You've created some business there. We have time for a couple more questions. The last question is actually pretty good, but let's talk about Alan's question. Does Token Funder manage the investor's portfolio through its lifetime, or handle it over to the issuing company once the deal is closed?
So the investor portfolio is managed on the platform. So if we now have someone investing in one issuer and another issuer and another issuer, as it happens, of course, as you, the issuer, you need to know who your investors are, and so you do know who the investors are. But then the investor comes into the portal and logs in and sees the portfolio. So you wouldn't know that they invested in somebody else's necessarily, right? As you can imagine, but the investor, yes. So it's meant to be. And yes, we've definitely designed it such that you can come in, and as an investor, you can be there for kind of a lifetime. So it's not one of those, you invest once and you sort of, you're done, you move on, but you'll come back to the platform.
Great. Yep. And the last question here, Alan, and we can kind of get into detail with this question. And this is a question that me and my team asked when we first got in contact with you, amongst ourselves and also you. Any advantages or disadvantages specific to us investors? That's a question that Jim asks. And yeah, we already answered that. But yeah, any advantage or disadvantage? So I mean, that was the reason where we got so excited working with you. But please go ahead, Alan, and kind of explain that process. We kind of talked about it earlier, but if you could.
I'm sorry. I think you're gonna have to repeat that.
No, absolutely, yeah.
Did it before?
We've discussed it a bit, but if you could kind of discuss it a bit further, is any advantages or disadvantages specific to us investors? Talking about the platform and Token Funder, I believe.
I don't see any disadvantages. Obviously, any disadvantages, we would have worked with them, worked through them. Well, look, advantages. I think I've certainly, without really doing a demo, but anyone that's kind of goes through the experience will see that the advantages are pretty good, as in understanding that you qualify pretty quickly, and you can always come back. It's so there was a question that I had the other day from an issuer saying, okay, so you're very digital. Does that mean that the investors are never going to be able to talk to somebody? Well, they actually can. Certainly, there's a chat box. There's an email. So if you ever have any questions, or you just want some advice on is this a suitable investment for me, the opportunity is there for you. So you don't lose it. Most people will be fine going through a very digital process, because the offering memorandum's there for you, any term sheets, all available for you right there online. So a lot of that's very understandable, I think, but we're always there for the kind of backup questions. And of course, that's the role of an AD, is to make sure that if you do have a question, and we're there for you too. Absolutely.
It's a second set of eyes, and I repeat it again. CPI has taken the step to service all our investors through Token Funder rather than a portion of them. So hey, Alan, thank you so much. It was great having you. Thank you for taking the time. We're very excited to be working with you and moving forward. And again, we ask all our viewers, please jump on the Token Funder website, create an account, get to know the site, and I'm sure you're going to see the benefits.
And enjoy this beautiful process that Alan has set up for everybody.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
I'm really excited to be working with you guys. So
absolutely.
Can't wait to see the offerings that come down the pipe.
Thank you.
Amazing. Thanks, Alan.
Okay, everyone. Have a great night. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.